The one thing, like people talk about depression all the time, the difference between depression and sadness is just, from happenstance, whatever happened or didn't happen for you. And depression is your body saying, fuck you, I don't want to be this character anymore. I don't want to hold up this avatar that you've created in the world. It's too much for me. So a friend of mine who's a spiritual teacher has a really good take. His name is Jeff Foster, and his take on it is that they should change. You should think of the word of depressed as deep rest. Deep rest. Your body needs to be depressed. It needs deep rest from the character that you've been trying to play.
For years, Jim Carrey made the world laugh while hiding something far heavier behind the grin. At 61, he finally stopped deflecting, stopped joking, and said out loud what many had quietly suspected all along. The revelation wasn't about fame or money, it was about the cost of becoming a legend, and once he spoke the truth, his entire career suddenly looked very different. Jim Carrey's early life was marked by stark contrasts between childhood innocence and sudden, harsh realities. Born into a working and lower-middle-class family, Carrey enjoyed only a brief period of relative stability before his father's job loss plunged the household into financial turmoil in the early 1970s. The family's descent was swift and disorienting. They went from a modest but secure home to living in extreme uncertainty. At one point, the Carreys were forced to take refuge in a Volkswagen van, with Jim and his brother sometimes sleeping in a small tent outside, enduring the elements as their parents struggled to find work and provide basic necessities. This period of hardship had a profound effect on young Jim. Witnessing his parents' stress and sacrifices, he was forced to confront adult realities far earlier than most children. He learned to be resourceful, resilient, and inventive, not just to survive, but also to find humor and lightness in a difficult world. Carrey's later work ethic, relentless drive, and intense energy as a performer can be traced directly to these formative experiences. The instability and deprivation he faced created a deep-seated determination to succeed, not only as a means of escape, but as a way to reclaim agency over his life. By the mid-1970s, Jim Carrey's family was in the grip of deep financial hardship, and the burden of survival fell heavily on his young shoulders. Recognizing the urgency of the situation, Carrey made the difficult decision to leave high school before graduation, a choice that would radically alter the course of his adolescence. He traded classrooms for grueling night shifts, taking on menial and physically demanding work to help support his parents and siblings. Among these jobs, he worked as a janitor and maintenance worker in a factory, often enduring long hours that left little room for rest, recreation, or the normal experiences of teenage life. The monotony and fatigue of these labor-intensive roles were coupled with the emotional weight of responsibility. Carrey was no longer merely a child learning and exploring, he was a critical pillar in a household struggling to stay afloat. Tasks that might have seemed mundane, scrubbing floors, repairing equipment, performing repetitive chores, became acts of survival and family loyalty. This stage of life postponed the carefree experiences of youth, forcing him to mature quickly and develop a toughness and self-reliance far beyond his years. Yet even in these harsh conditions, Carrey's creativity and humor persisted. The pressures of work and familial obligation shaped a resilience that would define his character and later career. His ability to transform pain, exhaustion, and hardship into energetic performances can be traced to these formative experiences. From the late 1970s through the mid-1980s, Jim Carrey endured what he later described as a grueling apprenticeship on the comedy circuit, a period that tested both his resolve and his sense of self. After leaving school and supporting his family, he threw himself into stand-up comedy with the same intensity, traveling from small-town clubs to dingy bars, often performing for scant audiences and minimal pay. These years were marked by relentless touring schedules, long drives between cities, and nights on uncomfortable stages where the response could be lukewarm or even hostile. Financial stability remained elusive. Carrey frequently lived hand to mouth, scraping together enough to cover gas, food, and lodging, all while carrying the emotional weight of previous family hardships. Despite the challenges, these lean years were formative. Carrey honed a distinctive style of high-energy, physical comedy that would later become his trademark. He experimented with facial expressions, vocal inflections, and improvisational timing, constantly refining an act that had to capture attention quickly in crowded or indifferent venues. The struggle instilled in him a fierce work ethic and an acute awareness of the audience's pulse, teaching him lessons about perseverance, adaptability, and resilience that no formal training could replicate. In 1987, at a pivotal moment in his burgeoning career, Jim Carrey married Melissa Wimmer, a relationship that promised personal stability amid his growing professional demands. The couple welcomed a daughter, Jane, bringing both joy and responsibility into Carrey's life. For a time, the marriage offered a semblance of domestic normalcy, a counterbalance to the intense pressures of an entertainment career that was beginning to accelerate. Yet as Carrey's fame surged in the early 1990s with hit films and high-profile television appearances, the strains of public life, relentless work schedules, and personal differences began to erode the marriage. By 1995, Carrey and Wimmer's relationship had reached an irreparable point, culminating in a divorce that was both emotionally wrenching and publicly visible. The dissolution of the marriage coincided with Carrey's rapid rise to superstardom, a period when private turmoil could not be shielded from media scrutiny. Carrey has since reflected on this time as emblematic of the difficult private costs that often accompany public success, acknowledging that the intense pressures of celebrity can magnify personal heartbreak. The end of his marriage was not only a loss of a partner, but also a profound shift in his family life, affecting his relationship with his young daughter and forcing him to navigate the complexities of single parenthood under the glare of fame. In September 1996, Jim Carrey entered into a second high-profile marriage, this time with actress Lauren Holly, a union that initially captured significant media attention. The pairing seemed glamorous to the public, two rising stars in Hollywood joining lives, but beneath the surface, the relationship faced pressures that neither the excitement of fame nor shared industry experience could resolve. Carrey and Holly's marriage lasted only a few months, ending in less than a year, and the abrupt dissolution became a very public personal setback. The collapse of this marriage unfolded amid intense media scrutiny, magnifying the emotional toll on Carrey. Tabloids and entertainment outlets dissected the breakup, often emphasizing the speed of the union and its equally rapid end. Jim Carrey's life has been punctuated not only by the highs and pressures of fame, but also by profound personal losses within his family. One of the most striking tragedies occurred in 2005, when his nephew Marty, the son of Carrey's sister Rita, died in a car accident. The suddenness of the event sent shockwaves through the family, leaving an enduring emotional scar. Carrey, who has always maintained a close bond with his extended family, was deeply affected by the loss, and those who knew the family noted how the grief rippled across their lives, altering relationships and deepening their awareness of life's fragility. Media coverage at the time acknowledged the family's sorrow, highlighting both the unexpected nature of the tragedy and the private mourning that followed. This heartbreak was compounded by other losses and illnesses within Carrey's family over the years. While specific details are often kept private, accounts indicate that he has navigated multiple deaths and serious health challenges among relatives, each event reinforcing the impermanence and unpredictability that have marked his personal experience. These moments of grief stand in sharp contrast to the public perception of Carrey as a high-energy comic performer. Behind the exuberance of his stage persona lies a person intimately familiar with sorrow and the weight of familial responsibility. In September 2015, Jim Carrey faced one of the most harrowing and public personal crises of his life, when his on-again, off-again girlfriend, Catriona White, died from a drug overdose. Authorities later ruled her death a suicide, but the circumstances surrounding it quickly became the focus of intense media attention. The tragedy struck Carrey deeply, compounding a history of personal loss and testing his emotional resilience. Grief was intertwined with public scrutiny, forcing him to navigate an intensely private tragedy in the unforgiving glare of global celebrity. The situation escalated when White's estranged husband and her mother filed wrongful death lawsuits against Carrey, alleging he had supplied prescription drugs that contributed to her death. Carrey categorically denied any wrongdoing, describing the legal actions as baseless and claiming they were motivated by extortion. The ensuing civil litigation dragged on for several years, from 2016 to 2018, drawing relentless media coverage that examined every detail of his personal life and relationships. Even as Carrey defended himself legally, the emotional toll was immense. He was forced to confront both grief and public vilification simultaneously, a dual burden few could imagine enduring. In the years following the death of Catriona White and the ensuing legal battles, Jim Carrey underwent a profound shift in both lifestyle and public presence. The mid-2000s marked a period in which the cumulative weight of personal tragedies, public scrutiny, and the emotional toll of fame compelled him to retreat from the Hollywood spotlight. Where once he was omnipresent in interviews, premieres, and social media, Carrey gradually became more selective about appearances, choosing solitude, reflection, and privacy over the relentless pace of celebrity life. Reporters and profiles from this period describe a quieter, more introspective figure, an artist no longer driven solely by the demands of career, but by the necessity of personal well-being and spiritual grounding. During this retreat, Carrey spoke openly about his engagement with spiritual practice, meditation, and philosophical exploration, suggesting a deliberate attempt to process grief, regain emotional balance, and confront mental health realities that had been intensified by decades of high-pressure performance and public scrutiny. The withdrawal was not just professional, but deeply personal. He sought to create boundaries around his life, protecting himself from the intrusive nature of fame while nurturing a more grounded, reflective existence. Family, close friends, and select creative projects became the focus, rather than constant public visibility. In November 2024, Jim Carrey experienced a deeply personal loss with the death of his older sister, Rita Carrey. For Carrey, who has often spoken about the close bonds within his family, Rita's passing represented a profound emotional blow. Their shared childhood had been marked by struggle and hardship, including periods of extreme poverty, homelessness, and family instability that had forged tight familial ties. Rita, as his older sister, had been a constant presence throughout those formative years, a figure intertwined with both the challenges and the resilience that shaped Carrey's early life and character. The news of her death was publicly announced by the family and reported in media outlets, many of which contextualized the loss within the broader narrative of Carrey's life, recalling not only the difficulties of his youth, but also the series of personal tragedies and bereavements that have touched his family over the decades. For Carrey, the loss of Rita was not simply another family death, but the passing of a lifelong confidant, someone who had shared the intimate experiences of upbringing, struggle, and survival. It underscored the fragility of life and the emotional weight of familial bonds that endure despite the pressures of fame and public attention. This most recent bereavement adds to a pattern of personal sorrow in Carrey's life, compounding earlier losses of loved ones, including his nephew Marty and other family members, and occurring against the backdrop of his retreat from the spotlight. Rita's death, coming in a period already marked by reflection and withdrawal, likely intensified Carrey's inward focus, grief, and appreciation for the remaining members of his family. It is a reminder of the private, human dimensions behind his public persona, a testament to enduring love, loss, and the personal costs that accompany a life lived both in extraordinary public visibility and intimate private trials. Throughout his adult life, Jim Carrey has been remarkably candid about a long-standing and deeply personal struggle with depression and mental health challenges. He has described periods of profound emotional darkness that were often exacerbated by the pressures of fame, the relentless public scrutiny that accompanies a high-profile career, and the accumulation of personal losses over decades. Carrey has spoken openly about his use of antidepressant medication during particularly difficult times, as well as his later decision to discontinue them, emphasizing his ongoing effort to navigate mental health in a way that aligns with both his well-being and personal philosophy. These internal struggles have been a constant, shadowing even the heights of Carrey's professional success. Despite widespread acclaim, box office triumphs, and recognition as one of Hollywood's most energetic and inventive performers, he has acknowledged that the exhilaration of fame could not erase the quiet but persistent weight of depression. Carrey's experiences reflect a dual reality. The exuberance and humor that define his public persona often coexist with profound private pain, a tension that has shaped his worldview, creative expression, and approach to life. Friends, colleagues, and media profiles have noted his willingness to discuss mental health honestly, a rarity in an industry that often prioritizes image over vulnerability. What do you think about Jim Carrey? Leave us your comments in the section below. We hope you have found this helpful video. Don't forget to leave a like, share, and subscribe to the channel if you like it. Thank you for watching this, and see you in the next videos. Goodbye.